All right, so this is what we are going to be designing and animating today. All right, Gary Simon of Corsetro. So just a few days ago, I did a tutorial based on one of the XD Daily challenges that Adobe's having. And it's basically a daily challenge. It's running for 8 days. I think they're on day 4 today. And today, or the one I did was Friday's challenge, which is design a weather app and a smart watch, essentially. And so this is what I came up with right here. So I figured I would do a tutorial. Now, the animation part was not a requirement. I did that on my own. I thought that would be cool to cover. So what we'll do is hop into Adobe XD to design the actual interface of this weather app, and then hop into Photoshop using a free smartwatch template as seen here. I'll show you where to get that. If you want to create kind of like a presentation mock-up of the user interface, and then use Adobe After Effects if you actually want to take it a step further to show how the interface would respond based on like a swipe left or right gesture. All right, so what I will also do is show you how to export that into, an actual video format, and as well as an animated GIF that you can use to embed into, like your Behance portfolio. All right, so this is based again once on this Adobe XD Creative Challenge. If I could find that real quick. It's at xd.adobelanding.com/daily challenge. This thing, get out of here. You just put in your name, your email, and they will email you during the weekdays. I think it ends this week. Any of the future challenges. You can also do the previous challenges as well. So make sure you subscribe here if you enjoy this, which I know you will, and also check out corsetro.com. Let's get started. All right, so here in Adobe XD, we're going to use a custom size for the artboard. So a pretty typical size for a smartwatch design is 312 for the width, and then 390 for the height. All right, so once we have that, we're now ready to rock here. So the very first consideration after you have your size and your artboard here is the background color. So it's the same thing for smart watches, just as with phones. If you have a lot of bright colors, it's going to drain the battery faster. So it's not a requirement, but it is definitely a consideration. So we're just going to choose a black background for this. Let's go ahead and rename this, and I'll just call this watch. Or I can just call it home, or the very initial screen. And this, once again, this is based on just a fictional weather app. All right, so it's going to have just a Fahrenheit and Celsius, and as well as some type of icon to represent the current weather. And then also we'll have a little bit, some other information at the bottom, which we'll get to in a second. So the very first thing is going to be the current day. So we're going to use a text field here. Left click and drag out all the way to the left and right, and then we'll center it. All right, and then we'll just say this is Wednesday. All right, and hit escape. And we'll make this white. And I'm going to use Montserrat font. And I think that's probably pretty good. Maybe just a tad bit larger for the size, the font size. All right. So now underneath it, we'll go ahead and have the Fahrenheit. So we'll just say 72. We want this to be larger because this is one of the most important elements that a person would want access to. So 72 here. To just get our little degrees indication, we'll have a little circle here with no fill and white, and we'll make this 2. All right, cool. Yeah, right there looks good. All right, so we'll position it here for now, and we'll duplicate that, Control D, and we'll scale this down both of these down just a bit. And this will be Celsius. All right, so we'll go ahead and let's scale these down holding Shift. All right, so one way to de-emphasize a lesser important element is through scale, but also through contrast or color. So what I'll do is take this one and we'll put it kind of like in a mid area, right from a mid gray right there. Let's add that to its swatches, and then we can also do the same thing with a little circle stroke here. So there we go. Now this 72 in Celsius, from Fahrenheit to Celsius would be 22, I believe. And then over here we'll have just an icon that represents the weather. So you can do one custom yourself, but I'm not going to do that. So instead, I'm at iconfighter.com. I can just type in weather, and we'll make sure we have free and no link back for license type, and choose, let's see here, this one right here. And this also has some other weather icons that are free to use. So if you want to use a different one, go ahead. We'll download SVG. I'm going to show this in the folder. All right, and then we'll minimize that, and we'll just drag this sucker right there. All right, now depending, when it comes to SVGs and you're importing, it depends on the source, because sometimes the strokes will scale down, sometimes they won't, or sometimes, as you can see, this stroke is just remaining the same. So we need to scale this down quite a bit. We'll make it white, by the way, but also the stroke becomes too big, so we can just scale that down to around 6. I think 6 will work well. And we'll just scale it down a little bit more here. And you want to make sure that when you're right aligning some content and you kind of have 2 columns of data, you're paying attention to equal margin padding on the right and left, as well as the top up here. Probably scale this down just a tad bit more. All right, so things are looking pretty decent right around here. Now remember, one of the most important things I haven't even mentioned is the fact that you're designing on a very small device. It's something that fits on your wrist. So having real small, tiny bits of data, and especially when it comes to text, is a major no. So I wouldn't go much smaller than this, that is for sure. All right, so now underneath here, I wanted to do something unique. So I just kind of thought of, all right, well, let's say there's a 7-day forecast, and we could represent in a real quick visual manner the temperature from day to day. And we could do that through a vertical bar chart of sorts. And so here's how we can do that. And obviously, there's probably a lot of ways that we could do it, but here's what I came up with. Let's zoom up here. We'll take the rectangle tool, and starting again from the very left of the text, just to keep things consistent, drag out something like that. We'll make completely rounded corners by pulling those in. Border, goodbye. And we're going to go pretty, very light contrast here. So pretty dark here. And then don't worry, we're going to symbolize this a little bit more, or add some more elements to them. I'm going to have, let's see, up here, we're going to duplicate this. So Control D, drag this up. Now we're going to have like a primary color. We're not just going to stick with black and white, although you could, but it wouldn't hurt to add color. So I'm going to do like a purplish. So that's C500FF. We'll add it to the swatches. Now let's scale this down just a bit here. It'd be kind of like a dot at the top of this little bar. I'm also going to make this one, just to get this this color in more, the same color here. So for that as well. All right, so now we have a little bit more, just a unique appearance. So also beneath this, we're going to have the circular the page pagination sort of, the little circles down here. Sorry, my brain's not working well today. So I'm just gonna drag these down. And actually, I do want a perfect circle for this, although this is pretty close, that's fine. And then once we have these three elements, we can take these, all three, repeat grid, pull it to the right. So we want 7 of these. There's 6, and here's 7. All right, so you can just drag these in. All right, so maybe up a little bit higher. I'm just looking at the margin at the bottom, right, left, and top. All right, so that looks pretty good for now. Once you have these of the right distance from each other, we can ungroup it. And then we can just create kind of a mock representation of just potential data for these. So I'm going to take all of them, the last 6 rather, ungroup them. Then I can just easily change the height of some of these. So this day is going to be quite a bit hotter. This day will be a little bit less hot. And I'm just going to do this real quick. I'll pause it because you don't need to see me doing each one of these. All right, so then even to even further reinforce and create another visual cue of the data, we can take the pen tool and just go in the center of each one of these and left click and not drag rather. We could create a Bezier curve actually between these. Initially I didn't, but let me try that. So I'll left click and drag like this. Actually, maybe I'll back up and I'll create more of a Bezier between these. All right, coming down here. All right, space bar, drag if you need to see more of the interface. Oops. Keep going. And then just end it right here. So now hit escape, we'll come out, and it obviously looks ugly, so let's go ahead and we'll thicken it up a bit, maybe to 2, and make it our color right here. All right, so now we have kind of a nice just visual representation of the temperature from day to day. And we'll also we'll take this one, for instance, and we'll say this is the current day. So to symbolize that, we'll take this little block right here and make it our primary color, but then take our circle there, make it black, and then we'll make this page indicator white. There. All right, so I think that right there, any more than this would be way too much. I think this is good for just the interface. We can consider it complete. All right, so what I'll also do, I'm going to take this, once we're happy with the design, we're going to duplicate it. And I'm going to create just what a different day would look like. So for instance, Thursday, change that. Now Thursday right here is a little bit cooler, so we'll say 68. I don't know, 19 or something. And then we can use the same cloud icon, assuming they're the same day, or you can just go back to that iconfinder.com or any other, wherever you're getting your sets at, and just use a different one. I'm not going to do that, a little bit redundant. So we're just going to use the same one here, but then we will change this. So this one will now become the active day. This right here is black. This right here is white, and then we'll just make this consistent with the other one. So, oops, yeah, that's right. And then this one becomes primary color, and one more adjustment right there. All right, so now we have our 2 days of data, and at this point, you definitely want to save. Now, if you go to Google and you type in smartwatch mockups, for Photoshop or whatever, you're going to find a bunch of results. This is one of them. These are free. This is a free mockup that the one that I decided to use. So if you click on there, it'll automatically download the zip for you. And once you open it up, let's see, this is what it looks like. So we simply have a sketch file if you want to use Sketch for this, or PSD for Photoshop. So let's go ahead and open up the Photoshop version. All right, and here's the actual PSD document. So here in the layers section, this is where your artboard goes in this smart object layer. So you can toggle on and off, you double click, there is the design. So whatever you put in here and save, it's gonna automatically update to there, right here. So for instance, let's go back to our Adobe XD. And then you can either just select one of the artboards if you only want to export one, or just don't select any and then go to your file, export all artboards. And we're going to choose PDF because we'll be able to import that into Photoshop at any type of resolution. So PDF here, and then that seems good. And then not a single PDF file though, we'll just do multiple. So export all artboards, replace that. We'll go back to Photoshop and we'll go to open. Select our two files. And then right here, we'll leave resolution at 300. Make sure mode is RGB. Sometimes by default, it puts it in grayscale. And then hit OK and OK. All right, so we'll take this one, or the first one, copy this. So Control A, Control C. We'll go back to our smart object and hold Shift to scale this down. This is quite a bit larger, but we're going to want those original sizes anyways for when we import it into After Effects for animation. And then you just scale it up, save it, and there you go. So if you just wanted a static, non-animated, way to present the design in an actual watch, this is how you would do it. So now you could save. You can also change the background color here by double clicking. Do whatever you want. All right, but for us, we're not going to do that. We're going to actually hide this and also get rid of the background. So we now just have this watch here with a blank screen, and we're going to save this and import it into Adobe After Effects for animating the interface. So I'm going to hit Control, Shift, and S to save this. And let's see here, watch design, we'll call this, I'll just leave it the same name. And I will hit OK here. And then now we'll open up, let's see, After Effects. So now I'll just hit New Project here, if it'll go. All right. And a new composition. So our composition settings are going to be, we'll say 1920 by 1080. The frame rate, 60 FPS is real smooth. If you are actually going to have a video file, that's what you want to use. But if you want to use an animated GIF, it's best to match it up. GIFs go, at least for Adobe Media Encoder, when we go to export it, the highest GIF that we can get is 50. So 50 frames per second will work well as well. Duration down here, I wouldn't anticipate these animations being any more than about 5 to 10 seconds. I'll leave it at 10 though. And then hit OK. All right, so you can use your Alt key and your mouse scroll wheel to size this up and down. 50% seems to be pretty good here. So now let's go back to Photoshop real quick though, and we're just going to save both of these. Actually, I haven't tried importing a PDF into After Effects, but just to save ourselves some time, I don't want to really experiment. I'm just going to save this. So Control Alt Shift and S will save for web. PNG8 will be fine for that. The image size is 1300 by 1625. That will definitely be large enough so that we don't get any blurring. So we'll save that, and I'll just call this Screen 1. Already did. New. And then same thing for Thursday. Save that. Screen 2 new. All right. Now we'll go back to After Effects. And we're going to import those 3 files. So we have our screen 1 new and 2 new. And then also we have our PSD file. So we're going to import these. And now we're going to get our huge Photoshop document here. Now we need to scale this down quite a bit. There we go. All right, so let's see here. Right there looks pretty good. You can probably even make it bigger. That way, you know, the screen's more in view. Seeing the entire watch it's not that big of a deal. All right, let's go ahead and save this, by the way. Let's call this post. All right, so now this part's it's just a tiny bit tricky to get this right, because we could see that this is at a perspective view. It's not 100% flat, so we have to create a 3D layer of sorts that will work well. So what we're going to do, we know that the dimension of our document in XD is 312 by 390. So the first thing we want to do here in After Effects is, well, actually we could just take our screen 1. Let's see here. Yeah, that'll be fine. So this already has the dimensions that we need. And so once we drag this screen 1 on here, we can go ahead and create a pre-composition. So we can go to Layer, with it selected, of course, Pre-compose. And this basically it's kind of like creating a group. If you've never heard of a pre-composition, it's kind of like a layer group in a sense. So we'll just call this UI, hit OK, and now it's a pre-comp. So it changes the appearance down here, and you can actually access it because it comes its own composition. This is a composition here that we created first. Double click on this, we'll see now we have this pre-comp where it's just this screen UI, and it happens to be in the exact dimensions that we need for the user interface. So if we go back to comp 1, we can go ahead and scale this and get this situated as we need it to be. All right, so right around there will work. All right, and what we need to do is make sure that we have this right here. If you see this view where it's just showing you the mode, hit F4 and it toggles between that. And we're going to use both, but for now to make it 3D, we click on this little checkbox underneath there. So now it's 3D and we have access to some 3D controls so that we can rotate it on a 3D axis. So you can see that it's the perspective is the watch is pointing this way. So if we open up our transform options, we'll see when we check it to be 3D, we gain access to our orientation X, Y, Z right here, these rotations. So if I move this one, that's obviously the wrong direction. We want it to rotate on the Y, and it's just very slight. All right, so we still need to scale it down though. So I'm going to hold Shift while left clicking and dragging. And notice how, because we have the background baked into the image, I mean, it looks okay, but it doesn't look good down here. The way we can make this more seamless, so that you can see the phones, maybe you can see this gradient that's applied. The way we can do this is to, with it selected, hit F4, and under mode, and this is just like layer blend modes, and the very top is showing off my screen, but there's normal, dissolve, darken, multiply, etc. If you select around darken, that's obviously not the right one. We can scroll through these by holding Shift and the plus button until we get one that looks like it's going to work well. And I think this is it, and this is add. All right, so if I zoom up, we can see this basically has removed that black background, and now we can see the full watch. And I'd say that this is pretty good right here. And so if you want to make any further adjustments, like scaling it up, maybe a little bit bigger, you can. All right, so now we have that. Of course, we have no animation. We haven't added any keyframes yet. So let's go ahead and start working on that part. So I'm going to go back to hit F4, see if we can scale this in. I'm working on a 1920 by 1080 resolution. So this normally I'm on a 4K, but for this video, it's making it a little bit hard to move around. So here's what we have in our UI. We have our screen 1 new, and we're just going to simulate what it's like to swipe between 2 different days for this app. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can tackle this and these transitions and the animations. One thing to note here is it would be really cool to recreate the whole user interface here in Adobe After Effects so that we have access in a layer for each one of these little bars and all these different elements. And that way you could really add a lot of cool animation, but that's going to take a long time. So we can still make something that's cool just by using a whole flattened graphic as we're doing. So we can just animate one screen in and take the other one out. All right. So what we'll do is go back here, and this is where we place the animation essentially in this pre-composition. So we can see here we have our 10-second timeline. So just, we'll say right around here after about maybe around 2 seconds, we'll go ahead and we'll push this over to the left. And we'll also scale it down and also make the opacity go out. So to do that, we can hit, with it selected, T, that gives us access to opacity. That's a shortcut for that. Also hold Shift and hit P. Now Shift will also add to our selection here for position. And then also we'll do Shift and scale, so S. All right, so now we have these 3 properties, and we can add keyframes right here on all of them. Then we're going to fast forward just a bit, maybe right around here, a little bit less than a second. And then we're going to start moving this over. So I'll left click, drag, hold Shift, move it over, right around there. And then also scale it down, hold Shift. And then we'll also take the opacity to 0. We'll take all of these right here. Oh, and by the way, since we're already on here, we'll go ahead and, we'll just take all these keyframes, right click. This is showing up off my screen, but at the very bottom, it'll be keyframe assistant. We'll choose easy ease. All right, and that'll change how the animation takes place in terms of speed between the keyframes. And then now if we go ahead and go back here, we'll drag this over here and hit the 0 on the number pad. There we go. So very simple. And that's probably even more time than what we need. So I'm going to move this back over here and get these a little bit closer. So we'll make a faster animation. All right, cool. All right, so now once we have that, we can go ahead and make the second screen show up, which would be Thursday. So we already have, let's just go ahead and hit Control D to duplicate this, and then take our screen 2, hold Alt, and drag on top of this, and that will automatically replace that. And it also saves your keyframe settings here. This one is going to be reversed though. So we're also, by the way, going to move this right here, kind of in the middle of where this transition is taking place, and move these over. The very first one will be right there. Now, this one for the position, it doesn't make sense to make it come from the same way. It should be coming from this direction. So if we go back here, we want to make sure we're on these keyframes. So you can take this little right or left arrow, and now we're right on there. For the position, that's the only element that we want to change. So we can push this over right here. So now, there we go. So let's go ahead. I'm going to hit 0. And there we go. So it starts over. Awesome. So we're not done yet though. Let's go ahead and we'll go back here. And we'll simulate kind of one of the, when a person drags their finger across, we'll kind of make some like a little shape that kind of follows the finger in a sense. And we've seen this like on Android when you're pushing something down on an app and it refreshes. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. We're going to create just a custom shape with the pen tool, the dreaded pen tool. And I'm going to left click up here, left click right here, and then right around here, basically at the furthest point you want it to reach out, we'll hold shift, left click to drag out a Bezier curve. So now we've kind of created a half or a semicircle. That went a little bit too far, I think. There we go. Okay. So now we go back to our select tool, hit V. I think it would be cool to make this fill color, the primary color that we're using. So we'll take the eyedropper tool and we'll get this right there. We don't want a stroke either, so make sure there's no stroke. And so when this happens, we want it to start like right around here. So we'll take this, we'll make it begin right where our current marker is. So to do that, Alt and the bracket key, the left bracket key, you can see that it starts right there now. And then we're going to move right to the center of this animation or so. And we're going to, by the way, to get a closer up view, hold Alt in your mouse scroll wheel. We can get a finer view here, a larger view. And what we'll do is here in the middle, we're going to add a keyframe. So we're going to drop this down to get access, not to transform, but the content. So shape 1, the path. The path itself is what we're going to be animating, the actual anchor points. So we added a keyframe here. And then over here, when it just begins, that's when we can adjust the path. So you double click it and you gain access to the anchor points that we added. So there's 3 of them. One is right here. If you click on it, now we can use the keyboard to just put it right around there. So now it automatically adds that keyframe because we changed the path. So now it does this with us. And I know it doesn't look good here because the background and such is white. But we also wanted to kind of just snap back into place afterwards. So we can do that roughly right around here. And we can just copy this original keyframe and just paste it. And so it goes back. And we'll also get rid of the end of the layer right here by holding Alt in the right bracket. So let's take these, we'll do easy ease, right click, keyframe assistant, easy ease. And now let's give this a go. Let's tidy this up a little bit closer so we don't have to sit there waiting. All right, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, I kind of like it. So now if you wanted to reverse that process of the whole animation, so it's a seamless loop, then we would just, let's see here, we'll go here, we have this, and then this one would just we would just reverse what just happened. So we would take these keyframes, maybe right around here, and we'll paste them, and now we'll reverse what's happening. So what we want to do is take this, put them here, right around there, and then this one right here is where it's going to go to the right, or yeah, it'll go this way instead. So make sure we're on these keyframes, push this over here, all right, and so let's take a look and see what this looks like so far. So it comes in, then it leaves. And as it's leaving, the other one needs to come back. So coming down here, we'll copy this, these keyframes, and as that one's leaving, this one is coming back. So again, we're gonna have to reverse these. All right, so this will come over here, right around there or so. So let's see. And then we'll go back to these keyframes, and this is going to be coming from the right this time. A little bit confusing. So they're swiping here to the left, and then they're swiping to the left again. Maybe I had the wrong direction. Yeah, let's reverse this real quick. Or not reverse, but if it's starting here, we actually want it to go back. So let's do this. No big deal, no big deal. I kind of messed up. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so then this one down here will be coming from, let's see here, the left. All right, so now we do it. All right, so cool. Now what we can do is take this, duplicate it, and position it. Let's hide this real quick so we can see what's happening here. Position this right when the animation begins, right there. And then we're going to rotate it. So we hit R, we get access to rotation, and I believe we can do 180 right there. Yeah, okay, and then something like that. So now let's go ahead and see what this looks like. Oops, and that's because I didn't give this long enough right here for the timeline. Let's find out where it's at. Right. Wait, let's see. It starts off. So right around 3 seconds. I think when the other screen shows up after a swipe, it's happening a little bit too late. Like it should be a little bit quicker, I think. So to fix that, what I'll do is we'll just make them in line with each other. There we go. And then if we check this out, probably gonna have to update a couple things. There we go. We'll just make these even with each other. So now, okay, let's give that a final shot here. Awesome. Let's try playing that again here real quick, just so it's bigger on the screen. Now it's going slow because it was loading. But now it's just a more smooth appearance. Awesome. All right. So now, you know, you could also simulate the little cursor, the little circular representation of a person's finger swiping. I did that originally, but it's getting a little bit redundant at this point. So now let's say you're happy with this. You have our 3-second animation, and you want to make it a video. You just go to Composition, Add to Adobe Media Encoder Q. It'll load up here. All right, and you would just take, you know, H.264 is a fairly popular, so that would be an MP4. Save it where you want. Right here is where you adjust the settings. But if you want an animated GIF, for instance, to embed into like a Behance portfolio or something, you choose Animated GIF from here. And then under Animated GIF for Match Source, you can gain access to the settings by clicking on this preset button. All right, and then under Video, you definitely want to make sure that your frame rate is at 50. And so if you want to make custom adjustments to this, you just uncheck these checkboxes. And then, you know, 1920 by 1080 for a GIF is huge. I mean, that's going to be a large file. So you would definitely want to scale that down quite a bit. I'll just try 720 for the height. So 1280 by 720 is still large. 50 frames per second, obviously the higher you have, the larger the file, but still you want it to be smooth, so 50 would be great for that. And then everything else is pretty much fine. So now we can just go ahead and, let's see, hit OK down here at the bottom. It's not really showing up. There we go. And then hit play. And it's going to render real quick. I'll just pause. All right, it's finished for me. I can open this up. Let's see, we'll double click on it. It showed up off my screen, and here we go. So by the way, one of the things that you may be confused about, why is the background black when in After Effects it's white? That's because we didn't have a background technically. So to control the background, we can go to composition, or no, layer, new solid. Just make it the same dimensions. You could change the color here and then push it to the very bottom. And now it will render that when you go to composition, add to Adobe Render Queue. And if you want to change the background after the fact, you go to layer solid settings, then you get access to that same panel. You can change the color there and all that good stuff. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed that. I had fun doing it. So basically, again, it's just the process of designing the user interface, and then, optionally, if you really want to take it a step further to showcase your work, you use Adobe After Effects to create the animation of sorts. All right, so make sure you subscribe here if you haven't yet. Check out Coursettra.com, and I'll see you real shortly.